Mike Shoesmith, executive editor, PNN News and Ministry Network. He's an author and syndicated blogger. And
are you guys following the whole Mars thing? By the way, they're trying to get people up in the Mars there. I don't know if you're.
Listen, I know even President Trump says that we're going to Mars. Right. He's got the funding, right. and he's reinstituting the NASA programs, and we're headed to Mars. Brother.
Are you volunteering?
What do you think? What do you guys think? Do you think they're going to make it to Mars or what?
I personally, Mike, do not believe we will put a man on Mars.
I think.
Hey, Mars. They're actually training a bunch of people. They're shortlisting this trip to Mars now. I've been paying a little bit of attention to this, by the way. I'm a bit of a science geek, but they're shortlisting the list of people that are actually planning on going to Mars, and people who have given up on living here. I guess I don't know, but they're training some of these people in areas of this planet which resemble the topography of Mars. So there could be another hoax in the works here. I don't know. There's only we went to Mars because you know how they're funding this, right? They're funding this in large part, by making it a reality TV show. That's how they're funding it.
And we know that reality TV shows are just nothing but reality.
Yeah.
So it's got to be real.
Nothing fake about that.
Well, I've got a serious question for you here.
Okay.
If they do make it, the Bible says, I don't have the chapter and verse in front of me here, but the Bible says that even the heavens are the Lord's, but the earth hath He given to the children of men.
Yeah.
Which a lot of people use that to say, well, look, people are not leaving the earth. The earth is our habitation, and we're just not leaving the earth. So there is scriptural reason to believe that if they do a Big Brother episode from Mars, it's going to be likely in Arizona.
Yeah, that's Psalm 115, verse 16. But anyway, go ahead.
That's right, exactly.
The highest heavens belong to the Lord, but the earth He has given to mankind.
Right, exactly. But now let's say perchance that they do make it up to Mars. And they do kick over a rock or dig up some frozen water up there, and they find a single-celled organism that they didn't bring up there themselves. What's going to be the headlines in the news, on Drudge, everywhere? What are the headlines? If they find a bacterium or something like that up there, a single-celled organism, with all of its own genetic code and everything, what are the headlines going to be down here on good old planet Earth?
We found life on Mars. We knew it. It's there.
On Mars.
Yes.
That's exactly right. They found life on Mars. And the scientists know that if they find a single-celled organism up there with its own genetic code and makeup and everything, that they have essentially found life on Mars. That's what they will say. That's what they have been saying. They've been looking for life on meteors and asteroids and all this stuff. They want to find life in its simplest form as a single-celled organism. Right? That is life according to the scientists.
Yeah.
So why is there still this argument out there? When does life begin in the womb? Listen, life begins in the womb when a single cell is able to exist in the womb with its own genetic makeup.
Mike, you're brilliant, man. I've never thought of that before. I'm going to steal that and write a book about it.
Well, if you talk to the scientists, they will say life begins as a single-celled organism which can exist on its own and has its own genetic makeup. That is life.
That's how they would define it.
Level.
Son, you are brilliant. Yeah. No, listen, that is brilliant because you're right. Let me just say it again for our listeners that don't understand your accent. Here's the deal. No, but here's the thing. Here's the thing. So these same, maybe not these same scientists, but the scientific community that says the fetus in a woman's womb is not really life, and it can be thrown away. This same body of science will say, if we even find a single-celled organism on Mars that's living, it proves that life exists on Mars. So a single cell on Mars is life, but a conglomeration of DNA cells with a beating heart in the womb is not life. Go figure that. Mike, you are brilliant. I've never heard that before.
this is why I'm having a hard time getting excited about this whole trip to Mars, because I listened to a documentary the other day, and they were talking about all the health risks of going to Mars that these people will face, all the mental health risks, the biological health risks, and so on. And I was one of the reasons they're going is in fact to find this life on Mars, to see if life exists on Mars. In the simplest sense, in so much as if they find a single-celled organism up there, they will boldly declare, and you will see this in every above-the-fold headline everywhere on planet Earth, life is discovered on Mars. Well, guess what? We have life growing inside of the wombs of millions of women every year that is being snuffed out. Yeah. And this is why I have a hard time dealing with this, because I've got a friend whose wife, 14 years ago, she was advised by her doctor to get an abortion because they discovered some anomalies with her baby inside the womb, and they advised her to get an abortion. Now, 14 years later, that young man spent March break at my house, hanging out with my son. And he is a well-developed, amazing young man. There's not a thing wrong with him. He's a star on his hockey team. And, I'm telling you, this is the reason why our time getting behind all of this other stuff that's going on. If we can't protect, because what are they going to do? They're going to kick over a rock. They're going to discover if they discover a single-celled life form up there, what are they going to do? They're going to put it away. They're going to protect it. They're going to do everything they can to make sure they don't disturb the ecology up there. And yet they have no problem with asking a woman to hire a hitman to go in and kill her unborn child in the womb. The whole thing just disgusts me.
Mike, you will recognize this headline when I read it to you, but I want to prove your point, because I use what I'm about to read all the time, especially when I'm teaching to young people, because what we're finding is that in our generation of let's say, like 15 to 25-year-olds, abortion is actually unpopular amongst that generation, and the reason is because of the science and the technologies, the ultrasound technologies that we have now, and things like that. But let me read you a headline from April the 26th of 2016. This is the Telegraph UK. Bright flash of light marks incredible moment. Life begins when a sperm and an egg meet.
Yeah, there's a
very
flash of light.
Instant that a sperm and an egg touch inside of a woman, there's a flash of light, and what do we know is the glue that literally holds life together and allows it to exist?
Electromagnetism,
light, which is electromagnetism. The two are one and the same. So we've even proved it here on Earth through science that life begins the second that a sperm and an egg meet in the womb.
Well, and they've documented that. We've seen that evidence. We posted that everywhere on the network, actually. That's just an incredible story. And yet, scientists have said, we know when life begins.
Yeah.
We know that life begins when the gametic cells come into contact with each other and produce life. We know that a single-celled organism is life. We know that. And if we discover that on Mars, we are going to have parades on Earth and celebrate the discovery of life on Mars.
Right.
And so we know when life begins.
But how do they know that this cell they discovered on Mars wasn't off the bottom of their boot?
Exactly. Or all of those robots that they set up there years ago that have been marching around Mars for how many years now?
And how do we know that they didn't send that up there on those robots on purpose so that later we could say we discovered it? I mean, with all that sounds like
I'm going to tell you how we know, because listen, our government did it, and you can trust the government.
And you can trust CNN,
they
right?
have your best interest at heart.
Yeah.
What is wrong
with
you
The media and the government wouldn't lie to us, would they, Mike?
What is wrong with you guys?
Mike,
you have some startling statistics from a particular country about their feelings on life and abortion, and so share those with us, and maybe that'll throw into perspective the importance or lack thereof of the potential of a single-celled organism on Mars.
Well, I mean, the whole thing for me is troublesome because we don't care enough about the single-celled organisms that develop into human beings on Earth, especially in mothers' wombs, Because LifeSite News is reporting March 14th of this year, in recent remarks to the Citizens' Assembly in Ireland, Dr. Peter McParlin, an OBGYN at National Maternity Hospital, pointed to a sign of things to come. In Iceland, the doctor said, every single baby 100% of all those diagnosed with Down syndrome are aborted. 100%. The horrors of that statement above can scarcely be grasped, right? Iceland has become the first nation to boast of eradicating Down syndrome from its country. Dr. McPartland expounded on this systematic annihilation, stating, there hasn't been a baby with Down syndrome born in Iceland in the past 5 years. And Iceland is not alone in its aspirations to create a Down syndrome-free world. The Holocaust of Down syndrome babies is a global epidemic, reports LifeSite News, taking the lives of human beings created in the image of God on the basis of prenatal diagnosis, which indicates Down syndrome, but as we talked about earlier, is not always accurate, right?
Yeah.
Denmark follows closely behind Iceland, and it predicts it will be a Down syndrome-free nation in the next 10 years. 90% of babies diagnosed with Down syndrome in the womb are aborted in Great Britain, and by the way, also in the United States.
Do those folks have any Germanic blood in them? That sounds awfully like Hitler's Germany.
Yeah.
Well, you guys aren't far behind. 90% of Down syndrome babies are aborted in the United States.
Yeah. You know, you shared a situation that you're familiar with, a young man that's friends with your son now, but something that a name that everybody will be familiar with that falls into that category. Tim Tebow.
Yep, I knew that's who you were thinking
Yeah.
of.
You know, his mother was encouraged to abort him. And I don't remember the circumstances, because the doctors were saying she was possibly going to die from the pregnancy.
Yep.
And she said, no way in the world am I getting rid of this child. And look at the voice that he has.
Yeah. For the
kingdom.
Yeah.
And his mother said, no way.
Yeah.
Can you imagine how many Tim Tebows are not walking
and
the
not
face of
only
the
is he an
earth?
amazing athlete, but he's brilliant-minded as well.
Well, not only are we talking about people who are falsely diagnosed, like my friend's son and Tim Tebow and all that, but think about. I mean, even assuming that all diagnoses are correct, exactly who are we eradicating from the planet?
We're playing God, Mike, and that's been the problem since the garden.
Right, but even people with Down syndrome. I mean, NBC News points to studies showing the following about people with Down syndrome, okay? 99% of people with Down syndrome are happy with their lives.
Yeah.
97% of people with Down syndrome like who they are. 96% of people with Down syndrome like how they look. Statistically, the vast majority of people with Down syndrome are happy, satisfied, and affectionate members of society. These are the people. This is a societal group that people like in Iceland and the United States, Canada, Germany, they want to eradicate these people who are happy with their lives. They're happy with themselves. There was a woman with Down syndrome who was shortlisted. She made the top, 5 or 6 people to run for Miss America.
So what you're saying is that folks with Down syndrome, as a majority, are happier with life than those of us.
Yeah, I don't think 97% of people in America would say they're happy with life.
No,
24 veterans a day take their own life.
Yeah.
That's just armed forces.
Well, I know of Democrats, there's 99% of them that are not happy. They're looking for safe spaces.
But no,
you hinted, Carl. You hinted at sort of Hitler-esque sort of activity. This sort of invokes images of what Hitler was doing, trying to eradicate certain sectors of society.
That's right.
And as our world increasingly devalues life to the extent of attempting, and in some cases succeeding, to quote cleanse unquote the world of anyone who may have a disability, this does really look like a culling that is going on. You know, you guys are hunters. You're familiar with what a cull looks like.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this is an attempt to reduce. This is population reduction happening here, and it's being sugar coated with a veneer of well, you don't want to live with a child with Down syndrome.
Listen, I'm telling you, it's an attempt to play God. We're saying these people don't need to exist. I know better than they know, or the Creator knows what their life is going to be like. They don't deserve a chance. So we're going to play God and say, well, we'll just do away with this segment of society. And again, it goes all the way back to the garden. What was the temptation of Adam and Eve? To be God.
Yeah.
Right. Well, that's a very good point.
Mike, you got about 30, 40 seconds. I'll give the rest of it to you.
Well, I mean, I don't know what else to say about this. You know, I love science. I love it that people are trying to, you know, expand our reach in the universe. I do love that. I'm a Star Trek guy, you know, and all that. But I mean, it's difficult for me to get on board with any of this when we are doing these horrific things to people here on Earth.